In today's video, we have the latest trade rumors around the Montreal Canadiens. Who are they expected to move to continue cutting some salary? We also have the latest on the Matthew Tkachuk situation with the Calgary Flames. We talked yesterday about his preferred list of teams being moved to. We can add a few more to that here today. Plus, I want to talk about Patrick Kane. There's a lot of rumors that he could eventually here be moved before the start of the season, or if not, during the season as a potential big deadline acquisition. Who are the most likely teams to land him? Plus, we appear to be having a head coach ready to be named in San Jose. We have a young prospect who's retired and several signings. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to take a look at here today. First up, we have the list of appointments, you could say, for the salary arbitration dates. Of course, they start July 27th. We'll go all the way to August the 11th. We originally had 24 players file for salary arbitration. That number's already been knocked down a bit. And of course, the Flames using club-elected arbitration on Matthew Tkachuk. So I'll show you the quick list here on the screen to show you what dates to expect certain players to have their hearings. And like I said before, though, keep in mind, I would expect a large number of these to be settled before their hearings ever get underway. Now, in the past, back a number of years ago, players and teams were allowed to continue to negotiate right up until the time the arbitrator made the award announcement. That is no longer the case as of the last year. They are now have to stop negotiating as soon as the arbitration hearing gets underway. So that puts a little extra pressure on the both sides to get a deal done if they really want to avoid the entire process. But as you can see, July 27th, things kick off with Isaac Lennerstrom of the Anaheim Ducks, Jesse Puljujarvi on the 29th for the Oilers, a bunch in between, and it all wraps up on August the 11th with a large number of 6 included on that day, including Pavel Zacha, now with the Boston Bruins, and of course, Matthew Tkachuk. So he gets the latest possible salary arbitration date. I would suspect that maybe that was done as a, I don't know if that was done as a favor or not, but it'll give them the maximum amount of time to negotiate a trade out of Calgary. Now, of course, we'll talk about him a little bit further here into the video. Now, as we mentioned as well, Elliot Friedman's reporting in the past hour or so that the San Jose Sharks appear to be set on naming their new head coach, and appears to be former college coach and Rangers bench boss David Quinn. Now, of course, it looks like Mike Vellucci of the Penguins and Spencer Carberry of the Maple Leafs were the other finalists here, but it looks like David Quinn is bound to be named and be getting the job. Just a little surprising, to be completely honest. I don't think it's a shock to hear anybody say that it didn't go well with the Rangers. He did not seem to do well with the younger players. A lot of people said he treated it more like a college program instead of a professional team, and it just didn't really work for a lot of players there. At the same time, though, I think it's also fair to say that he's had success at other levels, including college. He's coached internationally, and I would also like to hope that he's learned from his mistakes. Coaches quite often do a better their second go around than they did the first time. So we will see if this gets confirmed by the Sharks, but it looks like David Quinn is going to be the guy in San Jose. It'd be interesting to see what else Mike Greer here, the new GM, does for this team. They've already traded Brent Burns. There's also some talk that they might be interested in moving some of the other big ticket contracts on the team to try to gain some more cap flexibility and kind of start a bit more of a youth movement, so to speak. A name that comes to mind there is Timo Meier. Yes, he's a good player. He's not overly old. Still in RFA status for a short time here, but he's due a qualifying offer coming up next year of $10 million. So the way that last contract that Doug Wilson did for Meier was so backloaded, that his next qualifying offer at $10 million is pretty steep. As much as he's a great player, I don't know that there's going to be a lot of teams that are able to choke that down. Of course, Meier could also agree to an extension valued at less than that, but he's had some great seasons, and he certainly appears to be a valuable player who could command a good amount of money. I'm not sure he'll be quite that much, but it'd be interesting to see how the Sharks decide to move forward with some of these big ticket contracts they already have and ones that are coming due, like Meier. Now, as I mentioned as well, we also have an early retirement before a career really ever even got started, and that's former Maple Leaf goalie prospect Ian Scott. He's retiring here at the young age of 23 years of age. He was a 2017 fourth-round pick. I remember watching Ian Scott Jr. in the Memorial Cup back 3 or 4 years ago here, and just wondered if he could be the goalie of the future for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, the Leafs went a long stretch of time where goaltending was very inconsistent, probably up until, I'm not sure how many years you want to date back, but really up until they acquired Freddie Anderson. They went a long time with it being very, not stable, a position of instability on the team. Certainly, a weakness, but then Anderson really stabilized things there for a while. I guess we'll see how things work out now. Of course, Campbell did well short term, and now he's gone, and we'll see what their new tandem does. But certainly they had Ian Scott and Joseph Woll, really two real solid goalie prospects. It looked like they were really set for the future. Now here we are 5 years later after this draft, and Scott is not even in the picture anymore. It's just unfortunate. He's one of those players that just could not seem to stay healthy. The last time he really had a full year was 18-19 when he led the WHL and the Prince Albert Raiders to the WHL Championship. Of course, they went on to play in the Memorial Cup as well. And he just had an absolutely phenomenal year. Just a dominant goalie in that league. But after that season and turning pro, he's hardly played. He's been, barely played. His time in the AHL has been limited and not very good. Spent time going down to the East Coast League. Again, didn't have the greatest results there. And a lot of it is just the fact that he just has had one injury after another, and after another. He's always battling back. And he's just decided that he's calling it quits and just moving on with a new chapter of his life. He just had become, just in a short time ago, an unrestricted free agent after the Toronto Maple Leafs decided not to offer him a qualifying offer. He was going to be an RFA, but didn't get that QO from the Leafs. Made him a UFA, and instead of trying to find work elsewhere and see if he can continue on his career, he's decided to call or quit. So it's certainly something that you don't see a lot of young players do. Takes a lot of courage to make that choice at that age after having such a pedigree at a younger age as well. But it's unfortunate. I thought he had a real amount of talent, and it's unfortunate it never worked out for him or the Leafs. Now, as I mentioned, we do have some signings here today as well. A couple of more significant ones, including Nino Neiderreiter leaving Carolina and signing with the Nashville Predators. He gets a 2-year contract valued at $8 million total for a cap hit of $4 million per season. That to me is a bit surprising that a deal like this didn't get done sooner, and that a deal like that was not done by the Carolina Hurricanes. There was reports that the Canes were certainly very interested in having him back. I know that they couldn't afford a ton of money given their cap situation like a lot of teams, but given where this ended up finishing at $4 million per year, I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest. This is a good deal for Nashville, I think. Niederreiter's not, a super high-end player, but it should be somebody that you can be relied upon for, 20 goals and, 40, 50 points. And they're certainly a team that needs more offense. So to me, Niederreiter should be a pretty good fit there and fairly low risk with this kind of money and not a ton of term. So good signing there for them. Be curious to see what Carolina does here for the rest of the offseason, although they don't seem to be doing a whole lot, but time will tell. They've already made a few trades, of course, but they have to sign Marty Necas, so it's one thing, and I wonder if they might have another trade up their sleeve here. The Penguins have also made a signing today, signing RFA Kasperi Kapanen. Gets a 2-year deal at $3.2 million. This, to me, I'm surprised. This is more money than I expected him to get. He was one of the players on that list that you just saw a few minutes ago for the arbitration list. Of course, he will no longer be going through that process. But to me, last year, it's like he was non-existent. It's almost like he took the season off. Like, he had a really disappointing year, 11 goals and 32 points. I mean, the 32 points isn't that terrible, but something that you expect more of him. When he was brought over from the Leafs, he was expected to get an elevated role, likely play with a guy like Malkin, and just, I expected his point totals to really skyrocket. I thought he had a ton of potential playing a largely secondary role in Toronto, more of a PK role, and, to me, he just has not progressed, and he's taken a step back, if anything. And to me, this is too much money, especially at a team like the Penguins that are extremely tight to the cap here. Now, of course, this puts them over the cap. So they're going to have to make a subsequent move, which they are likely going to do anyway. They have more than enough defensemen on the roster that are on NHL contracts. They have a forward or two they could look at, consider moving. But because of this and the fact that he filed for arbitration, that is going to give them another buyout window, which opens up 3 days after your RFA business is complete. So in 3 days from today, that would be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So then after that, they will have their buyout window to do another buyout. I would suspect if they did do a buyout, it'd likely be Jason Zucker. He's got 1 year left at $5 million. Or $5.5 million, I mean. So he would save $3.46 million if you did a buyout, but it would add another year on at 1.7. So you like the savings next year, solves your cap situation, but at the same time, I don't know. So to me, a more likely scenario is that they're going to move a defenseman, which, like I said, they kind of need to do anyways. I would suspect that Brian Dumoulin, with 1 year left at $4 million, is a prime candidate. Marcus Pettersson's another name they'd like to move, but he has more term with 4 years left on his contract. I don't know that that's going to be overly doable. They already traded Marino and Matheson for that matter, but likely going to have another one coming. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but those are the most likely moves, subsequent moves we're going to see, I think, based on this Kapanen contract, which to me makes it even harder to trade the guy because it's an overpayment. I'm surprised on this contract. Like I said, they got good deals done for Letang, good deal done for Malkin, but then to me, like Jeff Carter, they signed, extended last year. He's overpaid. Now Kapanen's overpaid. I don't know. There's like a hit and miss here with the moves that we've seen Hextall do. Other signings here today, couple in Seattle. The Kraken have signed Carson Twarynski as well as Cole Lynn, both on 1 year deals. Twarynski gets 1 year at $750, where Cole Lynn gets 1 year at $850. Nothing too significant there. And of course, the Avalanche have signed Keaton Middleton as well. He gets a 1 year extension at $750. He's been a minor league player for them, but he's a really huge defenseman, like 6'5", 220 or something like that. So we'll see if he gets an NHL opportunity down the road, but they are pretty stacked on the blue line in Colorado. So to me, he's likely going to remain in the minor league system here. Now, on to the rumor section of the day. First up, let's talk about Matthew Tkachuk. Now, of course, he's been the hot topic the past couple days after Calgary announced they were taking him to club-elected salary arbitration. And then not long after that, we find out that Tkachuk informed the Flames that he has no intentions of signing a long-term deal in Calgary, which is basically going to lead to him being traded. He's at most willing to play out his final year and then walk himself to UFA status. And the Calgary Flames just cannot have that, losing another 100-point player, star of the franchise, for the second year in a row to get no return. That's something they cannot absolutely have. Losing Johnny Gaudreau this year, signing as a free agent in Columbus, was an absolute major blow to that team. Like I said, it's bad enough that you're going to lose players from time to time, but you can't have stars walking out the door with no return. At least if you know with enough notice that they're not coming back, you can make a trade and you can get as much as you can in a return. However, I do feel here that the Flames are at a bit of a disadvantage. I mean, when the other teams know that you want out, then at the same time, that cuts the leverage down for the Flames a lot, right? The offers may not be nearly as plentiful as what you might think, and you're probably going to get an underwhelming return, of course, because teams will be like, well, if you don't want to make this trade, we'll just wait. He'll take his 1 year deal through arbitration. We'll sign him as a UFA, and we won't pay you anything, right? So it's unfortunate for the Flames, but they're really in a bad spot here. Now, I do expect the return to be decent, but I know I've seen some of the mock trades online, and even some of the ones that we've talked about here on the channel that I've kind of come up with, they might even be a little rich, like I said, because there's no leverage for Calgary. It's a terrible situation. But we talked about 5 teams before that were rumored to be on his list. Because, of course, keep in mind the other way that even though he's the player here with no trade protection, he also holds a lot of the leverage because teams are not going to make this trade unless he's willing to sign with them. It's just that simple. So teams like Dallas, St. Louis, Nashville, Florida, and Vegas were the teams that were mentioned. Of course, St. Louis is his hometown team. The rest are all in places where there's no state tax. So certainly more of a financial advantage to take more of your money home with you rather than pay more in taxes, which is certainly smart. But like I said, people do question his, desire to win, desire to be on a contender and all that. when your biggest thing is money. Obviously, it's important. It just, there's different kinds of players out there. Some guys are more concerned about being on a contender and wanting to win that Stanley Cup, and other guys are just boils down to, this is a business. I'm here to make money. And if they're confident enough that they can be the guy, then they can lead that team to a Stanley Cup no matter where they play. Of course, like I said, there's reports that he wants to be on a major U.S. market and be a top player. So we'll see. But according to other reports I've seen today, other teams you could likely add to the mix would include the Devils and the Rangers. I really don't see how the Rangers could make this work. There's just no way possible, in my opinion. However, I do think the Devils would stand a good chance to be major players here in the Tkachuk sweepstakes. It was rumored at the draft that they were trying to trade the number 2 overall pick to Calgary for Tkachuk, and it was rejected at that point. Fair to say at that point as well that the Flames certainly had a lot more confidence that they could get a deal done, because Matthew Tkachuk at the end of the season said himself that he loved the city and absolutely wanted to sign long term. So that's why most people either think he was lying, or the Johnny Gaudreau departure really changed his mind completely, right? So ultimately, the Devils, too, the other thing that I'm not sure how much of a factor it would be, but the GM there, Tom Fitzgerald, is also cousins with the Tkachuks. So I'm not sure if that would make any difference, but it certainly doesn't hurt for that matter. But they have lots of young players that would be very intriguing to the Flames, I'm sure. I don't know what exactly they would be willing or prepared to give up, but certainly a guy like Jesper Bratt, who needs a new contract and right now with the Devils is having a hard time coming to terms. That could be a player that would be very intriguing to Calgary. They got like Alexander Holt, Simon Nemec, Sharon Govich. Like, there's all kinds of young players there that would be intriguing. Now, I'm not sure that they're going to want to give up a whole lot of the future young core. Like, I don't see them necessarily wanting to trade Nemec now, but they were prepared to trade that pick at the draft, so it makes you wonder if maybe they would. Either way, those two teams are added to be in the mix, so we'll have to wait and see. But with his arbitration hearing date now set for August 11th, that gives the Flames the maximum amount of time to figure this out. But most people think that are connected here to the NHL that have any kind of inside info suspect that a trade is going to be finalized before the arbitration date. So it could be any time between now and say August 10th. That would be the most likely outcome that we see. Now, of course, in Montreal as well, they're still expected to be cutting some more salary. They also did make an interesting signing here as well. They are bringing in a former first-round pick from 2013 from the Calgary Flames organization, Emile Poirier. He's been bouncing around the last couple of years, played in 3 different leagues over in Europe, including the SHL in Sweden, the Slovak League, and the KHL. Seems like he's kind of gained some confidence in his offensive flair back. Of course, spent a number of years after being drafted in the NHL or to the NHL, playing in the minor leagues and just not coming close to fulfilling expectations and getting himself an NHL opportunity. This is only a 2-way contract between the AHL and the East Coast League, so he won't be able to be eligible for an NHL call-up at this point, but if things go well for him, he could possibly earn himself a 2-way contract with Montreal to be eligible to be called up from that the year after, perhaps. So we'll see if a comeback is anywhere in the cards for this former first-round pick. But amongst the players that are expected to be considering moving for cap flexibility, Christian Dvorak appears to be right at the top of that list after acquiring Kirby Dach, and of course they have Nick Suzuki, Jake Evans under contract. It appears as though you could say Dvorak is a bit expendable. I don't think they acquired him, of course, the previous regime that is, with the expectation that he would be like your third-line center, which is right now likely where he would slot. So I would suspect that if they can find a deal for him, then he would be right at the top of that list. Of course, right now they're right up against the salary cap here as well, and they do need to sign Kirby Dach. So signing Dach is going to put them over the cap. But of course, we don't know the future of Carey Price or Paul Byron, who both could start the season on long-term injury reserve. Now, of course, Stefan Waite, who knows Carey Price very well, was recently did a radio hit on TSN Radio, and he said that he expects that Price will play this year and will be ready to go in training camp. But until we hear that from the team and get official reports, it's hard to bank on that. And if that is the case, then I also do wonder if they make a guy like Jake Allen available. There was a lot of interest around Jake around the draft and early part of free agency when teams are trying to set their goaltending, and there's not a lot of names left, so to speak. So if they decided they wanted to move somebody, I would think he'd be the guy, given they just signed Montembeault to a 2-year contract. If Price can play, or they decide to carry 3 goalies, but that's not really good for anybody either. But at the same time, they might want to wait a little while before they make that kind of move. just to make sure that even if Price starts the season, is he going to have any issues, flare-ups, whatever, before they, kind of go with a different tandem here, Price and Montembeault, for example, for the rest of the year. But certainly I'd watch Jake and I'd watch Dufour as being the two kind of key names. I wouldn't rule out Mike Hoffman either if they can find a deal for him to cut down some salary, give them a little bit more cap flexibility. Now, the other big name that's been getting a lot of attention here in the past day or two, I haven't talked about it here yet because we've been busy focusing on like Matthew Tkachuk and that situation with the Flames, but Patrick Kane's been getting a lot of mention. There's a lot of rumors out there that he will eventually change his mind here, possibly even before the season starts, and tell the Blackhawks to find a trade for him. Of course, he's entering the final year of his deal, over $10 million, along with Captain Jonathan Toews. But the Blackhawks could easily retain 50% of that to knock that down to, you imagine getting Patrick Kane for $5 million. There's even some betting websites that have the odds of where he's going to end up. Now, if Patrick Kane does not inform the Blackhawks to find a deal for him before the start of the season, I do think at some point during the year he will absolutely grant that, I would suspect, given how this roster looks and what they're going to be going through. Why wouldn't he want to go to another team at the end of the year and chase another Stanley Cup before he becomes an unrestricted free agent? That to me would make a lot of sense. Of course, I'm not him, I can't read his mind, but I would think the odds would be pretty high that if Patrick Kane starts the season with the Blackhawks, that he will likely be the top name at the trade bait board for a majority of the year heading into the NHL trade deadline. And according to the betting sites, they have the Edmonton Oilers as being the favorites to land him, and with the Avalanche being number 2, the Rangers being number 3, the LA Kings being number 4, and the Lightning being number 5. Now, of course, I think Kane would likely be, picky to an extent when it comes to where he's going to get a trade to for the deadline for a playoff run. And the way the Oilers did last year, they pick up where they left off. I would think they'd be a very attractive team to a lot of players that are interested in making that run for a cup here at the end of the season. So we'll see what happens, but I do think that the odds are increasing that we're going to see a Kane trade. And it's just a matter of where. Many people suspect that once he becomes a UFA, that the Blackhawks likely won't want to retain him. That's why they would want to make the deal ahead of time. In that odds are he'll want to play in his home state of New York, either for his hometown Buffalo Sabres, which you never know, that would be interesting for them, or if not, maybe one of the other teams in the New York area. I don't know if he would consider going to the Islanders or the Rangers. The Rangers are going to have a tight cap situation, but you never know how trades can change that, right? Same thing with the Islanders and so on. I don't know what his preference would be, but that's what the general consensus that there seems to be, that when that time comes, that's where he'll likely end up. But maybe making a run with one of these other teams before the end of this coming season might be something he wants to do. So let me know your thoughts. Where do you think Patrick Kane will end up before the end of the season? Where's Matthew Tkachuk going to go? How quickly is that deal going to come together? What other deals will we see out of Montreal as well? And of course, we still got some big names out there in the free agent market, which we're waiting on. Time's ticking on John Klingberg, Nazem Kadri, Paul Stastny, and others. So let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.